Imagine this scenario. You wake up at 7 a.m., or rather your alarm goes off at 7 a.m. You physically get out of bed, you might even manage to swallow a pill, but you are not there. You are moving through a dense gray fog. Your brain is offline, your limbs feel like they're filled with lead. You are effectively a zombie until suddenly 1 p.m. hits. It's like a light switch. The fog lifts, you can think, you can work, you finally feel human. But then 3 hours later, 4 p.m. rolls around, and you crash so hard you can barely keep your eyes open. This isn't just a case of needing more coffee. This is the daily reality for a massive number of people living with adrenal insufficiency.
And the tragedy, Jake, is that if that patient goes to their endocrinologist and explains this cycle, the zombie morning, the afternoon window, the evening crash, the doctor often looks at their blood work and says, well, your TSH is normal and your electrolytes are fine. You're compliant with your medication. You should be feeling great.
Right. It's the classic, the labs look good, so the patient must be wrong dynamic. But we are looking at a specific article today from My Adrenal Life that essentially argues the patient isn't wrong. The medication profile is wrong. We're diving deep into the pharmacokinetics of steroid replacement, specifically why hydrocortisone, prednisone, Medrol, and dexamethasone are not interchangeable, even if the math says they are.
Exactly. This is about the concept of the mismatch. It's what happens when the chemical profile of the drug you are taking fights against the biological rhythm your body is desperately trying to maintain. We saw a case study in the reading material of a woman with non-classic congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or CAH. She takes her biggest dose in the morning, yet she isn't functional until the afternoon. That gap? That is where the suffering happens.
Let's break down the cast of characters here. Most people hear steroids and think bodybuilders or maybe a prednisone pack for poison ivy, but for this community, these are life support drugs. The article highlights 4 main players: hydrocortisone, prednisone, Medrol, and dexamethasone. Why do they feel so different if they're all just replacing cortisol?
Think of it like fuel for a fire. Hydrocortisone, or HC, is like throwing dry kindling or paper onto a fire. It flares up instantly, fast onset, but it burns out very quickly. Pharmacokinetically, HC has a short duration of action, usually 3 to 4 hours. It's bioidentical to the cortisol your body would naturally produce, which is a huge plus. But because it burns so fast, you get this zigzag effect.
It's a roller coaster.
Precisely. You take a pill, your cortisol spikes, maybe even too high, causing anxiety or jitters, and then 3 hours later, you plummet. That drop-off feels terrible. It's a crash. So patients on HC often feel unstable unless they are dosing 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a day to smooth out those peaks and valleys.
So if HC is the kindling, what is prednisone?
Prednisone and Medrol, which is methylprednisolone, are like throwing a log on the fire. They take longer to catch. This is a critical point that explains the morning zombie phenomenon we started with. If you take HC at 7 a.m., it's in your blood working within 30 minutes. If you take prednisone at 7 a.m., it has a medium onset. It might not reach peak effectiveness for hours. Plus, prednisone is biologically inactive until your liver converts it into prednisolone.
Wait, so your liver has to do work before the drug even starts working?
Yes, it's a prodrug. That conversion time adds a delay. So the patient who takes prednisone at 7 a.m. and doesn't feel alive until noon, that's not laziness. That is the pharmacokinetics of the drug lagging behind their waking life. They are awake, but their cells are still waiting for the cortisol signal.
And then we have dexamethasone, the nuclear option.
In a way, dexamethasone, or dex, is like a slow-burning coal that lasts for days. It has a duration of 36 to 72 hours. It is incredibly potent. A tiny amount of dex equals a massive amount of hydrocortisone. The benefit is you don't have the zigzag, the line is flat, but the downside is the line is flat.
Because human beings aren't flat lines. We have a rhythm.
Correct. A healthy body has a massive cortisol spike right before you wake up, the cortisol awakening response. It's what jolts you into consciousness.
Then it tapers down gracefully throughout the day to let you sleep. Dex obliterates that curve. It clamps you at a steady state. You might feel stable, but you might also feel flat, sedated, or like you're living in a dead zone. And as the reading pointed out, Dex is fantastic for inflammation, but terrible for mimicking a circadian rhythm.
The article mentioned specifically that long-acting steroids like Dex and prednisone carry heavier risks for bone and ligament issues. I found that interesting because often patients are told it's just a replacement dose, you won't get side effects.
That is one of the most dangerous myths in endocrinology. The FDA prescribing information for dexamethasone specifically warns about bone loss, and we know from broader medical data that synthetic glucocorticoids, prednisone and Dex, are much harder on bone density than hydrocortisone. They increase bone turnover. They make ligaments fragile. The article describes patients feeling like their muscles have turned to cement or their joints are unstable. If you are in physical pain from your medication, that pain raises your body's demand for cortisol, which causes you to burn through your dose faster, which causes a crash. It's a vicious cycle.
Let's go back to the patient profile from the text. The woman with CAH, congenital adrenal hyperplasia. She's in a unique bind because she isn't just taking steroids to stay alive, she's taking them to suppress her androgens, right?
That adds a whole other layer of complexity. In CAH, specifically 21-hydroxylase deficiency, the adrenal glands are trying to pump out cortisol but can't, so they dump out massive amounts of androgens, testosterone precursors, instead. The treatment is to take enough steroid to tell the brain, we have enough cortisol, stop whipping the adrenal glands.
So they have to overdose, essentially, to shut down the androgen factory.
Often, yes. They require supraphysiological doses, and this is where the timing nightmare kicks in. If you have CAH, your androgen levels naturally rise in the early morning, around 3 or 4 a.m. If you are taking hydrocortisone, which is out of your system in 4 hours, a dose you took at dinner last night is long gone by 4 a.m. Your pituitary gland sees no cortisol, panics, and screams at the adrenals, causing an androgen flare. So the patient wakes up feeling terrible.
So the doctors switch them to prednisone or Dex to cover that overnight gap.
Right. They prescribe the long-acting med to keep the clamp on overnight. But now we're back to the first problem, the morning lag. The prednisone covers the night, but doesn't peak fast enough to wake you up. You have suppressed the androgens, but you haven't replaced the get-up-and-go signal. The patient is chemically compliant, but functionally disabled until 1 p.m.
The article uses this phrase, your body is not wrong. I think that's the thesis statement here. If you feel like a zombie, you are a zombie, regardless of what the chart says. So what are the tactical solutions? If someone is listening to this and nodding their head, if they are the 1 p.m. waker, what do they actually do?
The first step is abandoning the idea that there is one standard protocol. The text suggests several strategies that informed patients use. One is the pre-wake dose. If you are on a slow-acting med or even hydrocortisone, you set an alarm for 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., take a small dose, and go back to sleep. That way, by the time your alarm goes off at 7 a.m., the drug is actually peaking in your blood.
That sounds miserable, waking up at 4 a.m. every day.
It's not ideal, but compared to losing 6 hours of your day to brain fog, many patients find it life-changing. Another strategy is mixed dosing. This is gaining traction in the patient community. You might take a base of prednisone or Medrol for stability, but add a small kicker of hydrocortisone first thing in the morning to get that immediate spike.
Best of both worlds, the kindling and the log.
Exactly. But getting a doctor to agree to that can be difficult because it looks messy on a prescription pad. Doctors love simplicity, 1 pill, once a day. A regimen of 5 milligrams of prednisone at night plus 5 milligrams of hydrocortisone at 7 a.m. and 2.5 milligrams at 2 p.m. sounds chaotic to a clinician, but for a body that metabolizes hormones dynamically, that chaos is actually regulation.
This leads to the advocacy piece. The article gives a very specific template for how to talk to an endocrinologist. It says, doctors often respond much better when you bring data, not symptoms alone. I love this distinction.
It's crucial. If you go in and say, I'm tired all the time, that is subjective.
It can be dismissed as depression, lifestyle, or just having a busy job. But if you present a chart, a literal spreadsheet tracking the past 10 days, noting dose time, functional time, crash time, blood pressure, and heart rate, you change the conversation. You turn your body into a data set.
It forces the doctor to engage with the pattern. They can see visually, okay, every day at 4 p.m., the patient rates their energy at a 2 out of 10, and their blood pressure drops. That is a pharmacokinetic failure.
It depersonalizes the complaint. It's no longer, I feel bad, it's, this medication has a half-life gap between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. The script the article suggests is powerful. My body is telling us something about timing and medication type. Can we work together to adjust dosing? It's collaborative, not combative.
We need to touch on the compliance shame. There's this heavy emotional weight mentioned in the text. Patients feeling like they are bad patients because the standard dose of 20 milligrams hydrocortisone or 5 milligrams prednisone doesn't work for them. They think everyone else is fine. Why am I crashing?
That comparison is a trap. Adrenal insufficiency isn't one disease, it's a spectrum. Someone with Addison's disease, primary AI, has a different mineralocorticoid need, salt wasting, than someone with secondary AI from pituitary issues. Someone with CAH has the androgen fight we discussed. And then you have individual metabolism. There is a gene, CYP3A4, involved in metabolizing steroids. Some people are fast metabolizers. They burn through hydrocortisone in 2 hours flat. If you give that person the textbook 3 times a day dosing, they will spend half their day in a crisis state. They aren't dramatic. They are genetically different.
And the article points out that just switching back to a previous med isn't always the answer. If a patient says, prednisone makes my joints hurt, the doctor might say, okay, go back to hydrocortisone. But if HC made them emotionally unstable or unable to function, that's not a solution. It's trading one misery for another.
This is why the hybrid approach, or circadian release, is the frontier of this treatment. We're seeing more awareness around circadian rhythm dosing, trying to mimic that curve. In some countries, there are delayed release hydrocortisone preparations specifically designed to be taken at night, but release in the morning. But where those aren't available, patients have to hack the system with timing and combinations.
I want to circle back to the bone and ligament issue because it feels like a silent epidemic within this community. The text explicitly links long-acting steroids to ligament fragility and tendon problems. That feels counterintuitive. Steroids reduce inflammation. Athletes get steroid shots for tendinitis. Why would taking it daily cause tendon problems?
It's the difference between acute and chronic exposure. An acute shot reduces inflammation. Chronic daily exposure to synthetic glucocorticoids inhibits collagen synthesis. It stops your body from repairing the connective tissue. Over years, your tendons and ligaments become brittle. It's not just about bone density, calcium loss. It's about the structural integrity of the soft tissue. The article mentions fascia issues. Patients describe feeling tight, like they are wearing a suit of armor that's too small. That physical restriction is exhausting.
And exhaustion requires more cortisol.
Exactly. If your body is fighting its own connective tissue, your baseline cortisol requirement goes up. If your pill dose stays the same, you are functionally underdosed. You crash.
It's a complex web, but the takeaway from this deep dive seems to be agency. The medical system relies on averages. The average half-life, the average dose, the average symptoms. But if you are the outlier, if you are the fast metabolizer, or the person whose liver is slow to convert prednisone, the average is a prison.
Agency is the only way out. You have to be the principal investigator of your own physiology. If you take anything away from this, let it be that the timing of your symptom is a clue. If you wake up dead, look at the onset of your med. If you crash at 4 p.m., look at the duration of your morning dose. If you feel wired and tired at night, look at the potency of your afternoon dose. Map the feeling to the pharmacology.
And don't accept "you look fine" as a diagnosis.
Never. Quality of life is the metric, not just survival.
If you know someone navigating the maze of adrenal insufficiency or steroid dependency, pass this episode along. It might give them the vocabulary they need for their next doctor's appointment.